Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to be talking about trade reviews, and I've invited our editor-in-chief at Foreword, Michelle Shingler, to join me. I'm the publisher and founder. Foreword was started in 1998 as a opportunity for us to just showcase indie presses only and exclusively, and we're still the only trade journal that does that. So hopefully a lot of the information that you're going to find today is relevant to you as an independent publisher, or if you're an author who works for a larger house, you're still going to get some great information as well. I'm going to give you a little preview about what we're going to cover today. I'm going to be chatting with you first about the difference between trade and consumer reviews, give you some example of trade journals, and then Michelle's going to jump in with the meat of this session on timelines and editorials, some submission guidelines that are, generally looked at across all the trade journals, and then specifically about ours. We'll talk a little bit about a sell sheet, or a tip sheet as they're known, some of the importance for quality standards, and then some suggestions for using your reviews. I want to first address the question about what the difference is between a trade journal and a consumer publication. Trade is when is like a trade show. It's specifically designated for, in the publishing sense of the word, librarians, booksellers, rights agents, and other professionals who are making decisions about book buying prior to publication date. Consumer publications are newspapers and magazines that have a much more broad appeal to the masses. Those might include things like the New York Times Book Review, the Atlanta Magazine, USA Today, People Magazine, your local newspaper, anywhere where the consumer is buying or getting recommendations for books. And those recommendations are coming after the book is published. And the reason you want to notify a trade journal first is because librarians in particular, but booksellers as well, want to know in advance of the publication date of your book, about your book, so that they can make a decision about whether to stock it or not. Michelle's going to talk a little bit about that later based on her experience. But I wanted to let you know about some of the book industry's top review journals, and these are in alphabetical order. Booklist is a publication of the American Library Association, Foreword Reviews, Kirkus Reviews, Library Journal, Publishers Weekly, School Library Journal. Most of these are 50, 60, 100 years old. Foreword is actually relatively new at 25 years old. So book reviewing has been an important part of the process in publishing for decades, if not, centuries. And that's why this trade review session, I think, is important as you get started with your marketing for your book. And now I'm going to turn it over to Michelle to get into the meat of trade reviews and why they're so important.
Thank you, Victoria. So what we're looking to do with every single review that we put forward is to let the industry know about what books are coming out that they should get for their readerships, that they should get for their customers. These are books that are exciting for some reason, that fill a need that we consistently see, and that you should definitely have on your radar. That's the purpose of a review. We're always speaking directly to that audience. We are thinking about how to present the book in its own terms in a way that's going to appeal to them and to their specialized audiences, to their genre readers. We think both about books that we know are going to make their shelves, books from established authors that always do well in libraries and bookstores, like Irene Hannon, who is a small press author, but who also sells many copies and always is going to make that list. But also people who they have not heard about before and who they should shelve next to those familiar titles and familiar authors. Books that we know are going to resonate with readerships. So we think about trends. For example, every issue of Foreword has both a back of the book section that covers as many genres as we possibly can. But we also have recurrent special sections. So for example, we cover YA every issue. We cover graphic novels every issue. We cover poetry because we feel that that's important and that's something that people should have on their shelves. We cover recurring things like ecology and environment, nature, things of that variety.
Right, and just to jump in, Michelle, I wanted to let our audience know that while Foreword is sort of hosting this webinar, we are generally speaking about most of the review journals that we listed in the first couple of slides. So you can take a lot of the comments that Michelle's making about our publication, except for the indie publishing part, and apply them to what they are looking for as well.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about tip sheets later and what to send. When you're looking at each specific publication, think about what their features are and how your book fits into that array. And if it does in a particular way, highlight that so that they have something extra to look at. So what's in it for publishers? You're getting a recognized review from a source that librarians and booksellers trust. Your review goes into a database that both librarians and booksellers can go to and see all reviews gathered together and know that there's a lot of buzz around a book. All of us, I believe, write our reviews in a way that is very acceptable, that you can put it on your cover, that you can use it in your media, that you can use it to sell your book more generally. But that database is really one of those perks that we can't overestimate. We've heard this repeatedly from librarians at shows. They need, especially for an author whose name they don't know and who is not already on their radar, they need to know that multiple people have talked about it, have reviewed it, and have put an opinion forward so that they can put part of their limited budget toward the book. So it's really an invaluable part of getting a review.
And just to talk a little bit further about that, these databases where we license or syndicate our reviews to, as well as the other trade journals, are the places where booksellers and libraries go to buy the book. They are not going to contact you as an individual publisher or author to find your book. They will mostly only generally buy a book from their database, their wholesale databases at Ingram, Baker, Taylor, Bowker. I mean, there's dozens of them.
So how do the book reviews work? I can speak a little bit about ours and a little bit about how they differ from other review journals. But essentially, everyone is going for a little bit of summary, a little bit of what the book is about, and also a critique that's going to let a prospective buyer know, here's what's really cool going on in the book, here's what gave us a little bit of pause, but here's an engaged response to the book from someone who reads in the genre in a consistent way and who can speak to its merits and its shortcomings. So there's a lot going on. Our reviews are 300 words. That doesn't sound like a lot of space to do that, but it's part of the challenge and part of the joy, I think, that our reviewers find with every review. There's also an entertainment factor. I like to talk about our reviews as going on stage in front of an audience and essentially doing a one-person show about the book. So here's how you get a book review in one of the trade journals. We're going to talk about when to send, and this is something that I'm going to emphasize over and over again because it really is the most important thing that you need to look at before you send a book. We get approximately 1,200 submissions every issue. We only get indie submissions. We don't cover the big five. When you're talking about those other trade review journals, they're seeing even more because they get big five books in front of them. So you're competing with a lot of books. The good news there is the when to send is one of the first things that we get rid of books for. We're working on an approximate 4.5-month lead time, but we're reading books far, far in advance of their publication dates. So you need to send as soon as you possibly can, but approximately 4.5 months in advance so that your book has the best chance of being covered by one of these pre-publication journals. What to send? You're going to want to send your book in as close to finished format as you possibly can. We know that we're seeing ARCs, we know that we're seeing books in a format that is not perfect, that there are going to be small changes, but we want to see them as close to finished as we can. That includes cover art if it's possible. That's not always essential. We work with presses on repeat who we know that we can trust their cover art even if we haven't seen it. But if you're new to us, it's not a bad idea to have the cover art ready so that we have an idea of what the finished product is going to be. Whether or not any of us like it, the reality is that there is a cosmetic level to choosing a book, and people do judge books by their cover, and you do have to think about that. It is an important part of the presenting your book to the world. Follow-up is going to be different from person to person. I know that Publishers Weekly has a database where you can go in and you can see where your book is in the process. Foreword is a smaller magazine, so we don't have a way to track 1,200 submissions every issue. So the number one way people find out that their book is selected is when they get an email from us that says, hey, we need your cover so we can upload it for the magazine. So we're kind of a, you will hear from us if we're covering you. We do look at every submission. We do appreciate every submission. Following up with us is not as easy. The PR agency element is a yes and no. If you think you can do it all on your own, that's fine. But PR agencies have the advantage of knowing what a trade review journal's schedule is, what they're looking for in each issue, who to speak to at the magazine to see where the book is in the process, what to send, how to highlight it. They know all of this stuff because they work with us on a consistent basis. So there's a benefit to it that can't be discounted, although it's also not essential. I think I forgot to mention tip sheets with the what to send. We're going to come back to that later too, though. Tip sheets are very helpful because they give us all the information we need to know up front. ISBN, who your distributor is, and that pub date, which is the number one most important thing to keep in mind.
I also want to mention, in case we don't get to that, you tried to get the review back in a timely fashion so that they can actually put it on their jacket covers for review.
So what we're looking for, we have a limited amount of time to spend with each of these 1,200 books. So we both need all of the critical information that's crucial to our decision-making process up front. But we also need to know that the book in our hand is something that we can engage with and that audiences in that genre are going to engage with. So we are looking for well-written. We're going to open up your book. We're going to read some of it, see if the opening hooks us, see if a little later on it's still holding interest, see what it's doing that's unique and different. We're reading a little bit of everything. With nonfiction, we're also looking for expertise. I am not a rocket scientist. My background is in religion and English. So if I'm reading a book about rocket science or space or anything like that, I need to know that the person doing the writing has the credentials to speak about that subject so that I can then recommend it to our audience, send it to a reviewer who's versed in the topic, and know that everyone is on the same page about expertise. We're looking for unique. We're looking for something a little special. With YA, for example, we're seeing a lot of diversity in heroines and heroes, which is fantastic. We know that that's something that's going to resonate with library audiences, with that people are looking for when they go into bookstores. That's what we're going to want to pick up. And something that no one else is covering. Forward has the advantage of being exclusively devoted to indie presses, which means we're already seeing some of the most cutting edge work out there. So this is a little bit of an easier thing for us, but it's also something that we're looking for that sparkle. We're looking for something that we're excited to recommend because we've never seen it before and we know that our audience has never seen it before. So pre-publication, I mentioned that I was going to keep mentioning this. It is really, really important. We're a bi-monthly magazine. Right now we're wrapping November, December. Next, we're looking to January, February. Most of those books are already out the door to reviewers. We have to work that far ahead because that's how far ahead our audience is thinking. When they get our magazine, they want to know that these are books that are not already out yet, that they can add to their shelves ahead of time, that they can get in the door before publication date. So when people come in and say, hey, I'm looking for this book, they're prepared, they're ready. So we're working very far in advance. As I mentioned, Victoria also mentioned that our readers have a long time with books. We give them a month. They're freelance reviewers. They're working, this is in addition to their day jobs. So we want to give them that month so that they can sit with the book, they can get absorbed in it, they can do it in a way that they're having an engaged conversation with it, and that their review reflects a lot of thought and time and strong consideration. Yeah, the 5 layers of editing and proofing, it's a long process for a number of reasons. That is part of it. They have a month. Then we have time to look it over and make sure everything is perfect. Get it to you to make sure all the facts are straight before we go to print and get out to people still ahead of publication. So we have some examples of tip sheets here that were very effective for us. You always want to include this with your submission. The first thing we're looking for is publication date. We're looking for a lot of easy to find information right up front. So make sure it's easy for us so that we can file your book with the appropriate issue. So this one's great with partially for that box on the bottom that has all of that metadata that we're looking for. It has the ISBN. It lets us know what the genre is. It lets us know how to contact you if we select the book for coverage. Publication date right up front, We also have an idea of what the cover is going to look like. We have a little bit of background on the author. This is giving us a concise taste of what the book is and why we should look for it right up front. Make it as easy as possible on the people doing selections. This is a YA tip sheet. They made the very smart choice of gearing the artwork toward that as well. You know, looking at it without having to read anything, that this is for a specific audience. That's very helpful to us. We always cover YA in every issue, so this is something that's going to pique our interest, that we know, hey, we're looking for this, we should pay extra attention. Again, they have that bar at the bottom that has all of the critical information right up front. We have a publication date, we have the artwork, everything we need to know is right there. Keep it simple, keep it one page, you're going to do yourself a huge favor. This is for a book that we're covering in January. It's a picture book, as you can see. This author made the very smart choice of pulling a little bit of the artwork out. That is, of course, something we're always thinking about when we're choosing picture books. So we have an early idea of what the artwork is going to be when we open the book, that it's striking, that it's different, that it's doing something cool. I believe there's also a little bit about there on how she crowdfunded the book, which is of interest to us because we're geared toward indie authors. We find that stories like that interesting, and that's something we want to share with our audience.
One of the things that we wanted to talk to you about today is the fee for review service options that you might have heard about in the last few years. Actually, Foreword was the originator of the service. We were, I think, about 3 years old when one of my co-founding editors was completely overwhelmed with the amount of submissions that we were getting and said, what do you think would happen if we asked people to pay for their reviews if they wanted a review from us? And, you know, we're indie, and so we thought outside of the box a little bit, and we put a service together called Clarion. These fee for review service options were the ugly stepchildren. I mean, we were pretty much blacklisted in the industry. The moment we announced that we were doing this, people couldn't believe that we were going to, you know, give fair and honest reviews if people paid for them. Which was kind of an interesting philosophy to spread, I thought, because we would never risk our reputation by doing that. And now, as you may be aware, they're offered by most of the trade journals in the industry. So it wasn't such a bad idea after all. They are written by the same reviewers who write for Foreword. Usually they're even a little bit longer than the magazine reviews because we have the space to post them online, and it's not driven so much by the print publication. And again, we've talked about this before. One of the most important things about these reviews, and from my perspective, one of the only reason why, or good enough reason why you would pay for something, is because your review is syndicated to the wholesalers. We have a star rating system for Clarion reviews. So if you get a 1 or 2 star with your review, it's usually going to come with some suggestions about how you can revise or revisit your manuscript and improve upon the book. And that's really what the whole idea behind this fee for review services as well. If you can get it to us early enough and you have a book that you're publishing for the first time, this is kind of like a great, it's not editing, but it'll point out some obvious factors that you might have missed, and we can help you, you know, put a more professional package together. Of course, my original idea is that every marketing team would sit down on Monday mornings and say, well, this book, and this book got a review. Let's get these other 4 out to Foreword and get their Clarion fee for review. That's how important reviews are. And getting them into the system where purchasing is happening is really critical. So we just want to leave you with some general advice about reviews. It's super important to invest in cover art and interior design and editorial assistance. So many, I mean, I've been doing this for long enough, and I don't feel like it does anybody any good to sugarcoat things. So I'm going to be kind of frank here. You must understand that our editors are looking for a reason to say no to your book because we get so many submissions. don't give them an opportunity to do that for very simple opportunities, like making sure your cover art is professional and the design is well done and that you've had the book edited. There's all kinds of services out there. It's 1 or 2 cents a word to have your book edited. It really makes a big difference. We also suggest that you do your homework and learn a little bit about the trade journal before you send your book. I mean, I know that Michelle is Southern, and so she's very polite about this, but we do get books addressed to an editor who died 8 years ago. And, you know, it just takes a couple minutes to go to the website and find out from the submissions guidelines usually listed there who is making the decisions about book reviews, and make sure their proper name is on the book. Also, if it's even appropriate, if your book is even something that they would consider. I don't, you know, money is money, and don't send your book if it's not a good fit for the trade magazine. Again, the tip sheets are like gold, especially for busy editors who are trying to make a decision and have a couple more slots to fill in the upcoming issue. If they're getting stuff in the mail that is even past the deadline, it could make or break your coverage in the magazine. And we don't want you to rush the process. I mean, it's just, you've spent probably many years writing your book if you're an author publisher, or even if you are publishing many other authors in your own home under your publishing house. Please do them the favor of making sure that you don't have that all go to waste by putting the publication date past the trade review journal deadlines, because it's a huge opportunity to get advanced sales and some credibility from people who are trusted in the trade. So we really recommend that you just take your time, figure out what the process is, and plan accordingly. The timing is different between trade and consumer book reviews. The trade is advanced, the consumer is after. You don't want to be doing an interview on a radio and have everybody get excited about your book and then run into the library or bookstore and they've never heard of it. So you have to, that's another reason why traded advanced reviews are important. Fee for reviews like Clarion are a good investment and another opportunity if you really need to get a review for a book. Put the quality in and be prepared for the second part of publishing, and that is after you write it, marketing is you know, huge. And if you're not really prepared for that, you should hire resources to help you get the job done. So, you know, because we can tell if you're not really into it, and so can everybody else. I just wanted to put Michelle's and my email addresses up here for people to follow up with. If you were interested in getting some questions in, go ahead and feel free to email us. We are very good about follow up for these things. That's all for us today, everybody. Remember our email addresses, victoria@forewordreviews.com or mshingler. Actually, it's Michelle with 2 L's will also get you at forewordreviews.com to her e-box too. I'll talk to you soon.